with Paul Daner, Mark Shalafoo, from listener questions to some running gags. Insider stories, ambush light, that dad life and respect for flags. Kick off the weekend, alright? It's the Growler Friday Show, it's Dey Light.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of Dey Light. Paul Daner Jr., Mark Shalafoo, excited to be with you. Mark, how we doing?
As good as you can on Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Here's the thing too for me, like last week I was talking so much about embracing all the chaos from the holidays and how I'm going to miss it someday. And then we finally got hit with that preschool cold that's been going around. And I don't know if I enjoy embracing the holiday chaos anymore.
No, you're like, this is not the part that I'm going to lovingly look back on in years at all. This is
No
not
chance.
the good stuff. No.
What flag are you flying today on Friday the 13th?
Santa is still holding strong. Now, there was a tough decision, I got to tell you, I know people are like, we're going to talk about your decision making with the flags, but this was a tough one when OU won its first MAC title in 56 years last weekend. I had decided, if there was ever a time to fly the OU flag, that was going to be the day. But I was out of town and not here to monitor it properly. And taking Santa down, it requires something big. That felt big, and it felt like something I should do. And then I got back, and it was already passed. And now I feel a lot of guilt that I didn't fly the OU flag after they won their first MAC title in 56 years. And I'm a little, I'm still hurting me. As you can tell, like you can hear it in my voice a little bit.
Santa's here every season. This doesn't happen for Ohio U every year. You got to support the Bobcats. Are you going to have it up for the bowl game at least?
That is going to happen. That is going to happen. We're certainly going to do that, which reminds me. So we were talking about this yesterday with Mo, and just sort of organically came up with a watch party for the OU in the Cure Bowl against Jacksonville State, whose mascot is Cocky the Gamecock. We decided that we think we should just have a watch party. It's a Friday. It's at noon. We can go down to BetMGM Nation Kitchen, get some drinks fired up, get some. It's a perfect time. Get your weekend started right. We go down there. We watch the game. We felt like this is something that you could get behind.
Absolutely. Only if Jay's going to be there, though, because he is
going to be there.
Every time I've gone down to that sports book, he has given me a tip that has won me money. So if he's there, I'm there. I'm in.
Maybe that's it. Jay has a tip for everyone on the OU game, which, that although he may be a little biased, maybe he needs to give you a tip on a game that's happening at the same time that we're down there, but not that game, since he's going to be so biased towards the Bobcats to take out Cocky. I don't know. but I do think we talked about it. I feel like this is something that we can do that can come together.
Let's do it. It's a good chance for all the Growl pals to just take that long work lunch, and just come down and have some Cincy Lights and really take it easy. It's a holiday weekend, you got to take it easy. Nobody does any real work on that Friday.
Yeah, I think, and let's really lean into the local Jacksonville State alumni group. You got to feel like there's a lot of that there. Or, maybe this is just a Cincinnati OU. Alert the OU Alumni Association in Cincinnati. Put them on high alert that we're doing this. We're very much impromptu, unofficially throwing this together, like most good OU parties.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't need to be something that there's like a 3-month email chain about. It happens. Everybody goes to the cool spot, and you have a great night that you remember for a long time.
Love this. I love everything about it. We need to try to pull it off. More on this next week as we get a little more official with this. We also, speaking of official, we are official that our next live show, though, beyond that one, is going to be for the Bengals game against the Browns at 10 a.m. On the 22nd. Christmas show coming your way. Gifts for everyone. We're going to be giving out gifts. Can I get you in Santa gear, Mark?
It might be a little late in the season to find a good Santa suit. I don't know if I have the gravitas to pull that off either. Don't you need to be like 60 and slightly overweight at least?
You do. I don't think it would fit you, but I think that's part of the charm. Part of the charm of you trying to pull it off and the effort that you're willing to go to for this.
I think it would be more fun if we had a celebrity Santa, like, put our guest in the Santa suit and see if everyone can figure out who it is. That sort of thing.
Wow, like the Masked Singer, but Christmas. Okay, I like that. We'll see, but I do know that we will be giving away lots of stuff. So, whatever you're doing before the game, come on down. $3 Cincy Lights. We'll have the mimosas will be fired up, Bloody Marys, all of that stuff. 10 a.m. start for us, and come win some stuff. We'll have tons of things that we're giving away and doing as far as our Christmas show there. So the biggest prize giveaway that we've done all year. So come on down, and I think we should test some people. Maybe we have some people try to answer some trivia for the best of the giveaways and see if they can pull it off.
Yeah,
But
we've made it so easy for people because it's like, hey, who wants a free T-shirt? That's been some of our weeks. So even the cornhole, like that wasn't too hard, but we need to have some levels to this.
Yeah, our prize game will be amped up. Jerseys, you name it. We're gonna have lots of really good giveaways that we're gonna be doing. I think we wrap them. And then we make people have to pick and see what they get, right? Like door number 1, door number 2. Is the big box the good thing or the bad thing, right? You get the big box and there's one grape in it or something like that. I think we should consider lots of things. I think there's lots of ways to go with this. Maybe
we do a white elephant where the Growl Pals also bring a wrapped gift to put on the gift table.
You want to. Make sure you make your way down there. NationKitchenandBar.com. Reserve a table for any major sporting event, TVs, good food, good drinks. Great place to go, as you know by now. All right, Mark, what's your favorite Bengals story of the week?
We finally got some positivity this week with a win, and I feel like all the good vibes from that kind of evaporated pretty quickly with Joe Burrow's personal situation. But my favorite thing was just Jamar Chase doing the gritty for the sick kid, like that storyline.
Brixton,
that was a cool moment, and like it's fun to see that sort of thing because this season desperately needs some positivity at this point, and having cute little moments like that is what makes pro sports such a cool thing where you can really light up a kid like that. It does make me wonder, though, how many of these situations happen where you just never hear about them. You never hear the outcome because the player like gives the kid the pep talk. I'm going to score a touchdown for you. And he just goes with like 2 catches for 17 yards, 3 dropped passes.
Yeah.
Just completely just craps out in the game, drops all the momentum. But you know what? I did like if it's Chase is going to come through for you this season. Like that's a home run for you. And I do like the possibility too of maybe we involve other players in this, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe you get Geno Stone that, talks to a kid that's like, all right, hey, listen, I know you're going through it with bullying in class, but I want you to know every time I miss a tackle out there in this game, it's for you, like you got to stay in your wheelhouse. Jamar Chase scores touchdowns. He can give you the celebration, but Geno Stone can give you some missed tackles. So that's for you, kid.
Yeah, like laying on the ground after the whiff and then like pointing up into the stands, in the process. I think this is perfect. I love
every time
lean into what you do best. Something you know is going to happen.
Right. Every time Cordell Volson ends up on his back, that's for you, little guy. He's out there for you, giving up sacks.
Yeah, and also Cordell Volson would be pointing up to the stands and not helping Joe Burrow up at that point. Like,
that is true.
Choose not to do so. That is unbelievable. I need that to happen. Mine this week is tracking the Carson Palmer timeline. This week, okay, on the Joe Burrow equals Carson Palmer meter. Where are we at? And we moved ahead. We moved ahead on the timeline this week, where we now have found ourselves directly at the end of the 2007 season. So history lesson for those that don't know. Carson's gradual resentment and animosity and issue that he had with the organization, going from everybody being on top of the world in 2005 when he got paid and everything else to it ending in his threatening retirement and all that stuff. This is where, after that season, was where he started kind of demanding changes and being vocal. After that season ends and he's out there saying like, we need change here. We need change here. This is the type of thing that we need to be doing, and saying it really for one of the first times, just out there saying it. And this came after a year where like all these passing records were being broken and they were 7-9 and didn't make the playoffs again. And so you were starting to see it turn there. That feels familiar. I feel like we've reached that portion of the program. After that, it took 3 seasons after that to get to the end game. And I'm not saying Joe Burrow is going to end up there, but if you're following that playbook, if you're reading that book and you're wondering if it connects to times, that's where we're at. That's the chapter that we've reached with this one.
Yeah. So that is a little concerning. I'll be honest. We have a lot of Growl pals that have reached out, sending their emails to the growlerpodcast@gmail.com. And they always want to pull up the Carson stuff. They're doing the same thing to Joe Burrow that they did to Carson, the same thing. And people were on this bus early. Like we're talking Patriots game early, not even, now when it makes a little bit more sense and there's a little bit more drama going on. I don't like that forecast. I don't want to go down that road with Joe Burrow. I think
I'm not saying they're going to go down that road. You can always exit. Right. Yeah. Like the exit is always there. You don't have to stay on the Palmer Highway, right? You don't have to do that. You can always just go off to the side, get some gas, take a breath, and decide if this detour that maybe a lot of the rest of the other league has used, let's say the rest of the league is all going like, look, we're all taking Route 42. You can just go, you can connect it right up here and go around everything. You don't have to go down the highway of the way you're going. And you're like, nah, this is the way we go, right? You can make that decision, and I think that could, and maybe T Higgins is the other shoe that drops here. But this was, you eventually got TJ Hushmanzada leaving, the other guy. If you're looking for comps there, and when they couldn't connect on a deal, and TJ's talked about regretting that over the years, but like you have the other receiver leaves and things start to change. And then, you signed back then, Carson signed a contract thinking that John Kitna was going to be his backup, and he wasn't. And he was bitter about that. And so if you feel lied to, you feel like they didn't do things that you hoped they would do, or they said they would do. And then next thing you know, you end up going down the ugly route. You can always exit. And I think this is the off season where you're like, are they going to exit or are they going to stay on the highway? And that's what kind of makes it a fascinating topic at this point.
Well, this does seem like an ownership group that learns from their mistakes and learns from past precedents. So I feel very confident that they will not continue to do the same thing over and over and expect different results.
They have operated differently in a lot of ways after Joe Burrow showed up. So maybe this can be the latest thing that Burrow can change. Maybe we find out if he truly is the savior or if he's just another guy.
I mean, the one thing I will say that is maybe a little bit different from the Carson Palmer path is that Joe Burrow seems to get better after every injury. He bounced back from the ACL injury, was great. Everyone was concerned before the season about how the wrist would hold up, if he would look the same, if he'd be able to make plays. I think he's had a pretty good season.
Yeah, no, Carson never played at this level, even in 2005.
Yeah.
Carson never played the position at this level. He was never clearly a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the league. Like I don't think you could say that. And so that is certainly a differentiator, and amongst other things. So I didn't want to completely go into that, but it was funny when you saw like, oh, okay, we've definitely reached that part. This was the next step that you were waiting on, and here it is right now, right in front of you. So you can, if you're following that timeline, there it is. And Carson was then right after that, Carson just showed up in the news magically as I was kind of going back through that a little bit, ticking back through the connection. He's going to be a high school football coach.
Wow.
At
so
Santa Margarita High School in LA, outside LA near Laguna Beach.
What's his connection to that high school?
His son is just finished a year on the freshman team there, or is a freshman there and plays. So I think coaching his son's team is where he's going with that. So bringing it full circle, Carson Palmer and John Kitna at the same time, both now coaching high school football. So
yeah. So if you really zoom out, maybe Joe Burrow is coaching Athens in 20 years or whatever it is.
You talk about things that feel like they could definitely happen. I could definitely see Joe Burrow coaching Athens high school.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Although in that scenario, he has a kid that goes to Athens high school, and that feels less likely.
But yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
All right, time for me to rank your tweets.
Oh yeah.
I
didn't tweet as much this week.
Yeah, you didn't tweet as much, which I'm jealous and happy for you. But I do have these two that I liked. One was Good thing the team wasn't in town when someone broke into Joe Burrow's home, because the entire offensive line would have just watched it happen, which I love that. We were talking about the concept of like this security detail that was there. Like, Quentin Spain and Trey Hopkins and Isaiah Prince. I like the idea that security detail was just like his offensive line from the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That just kind of continuing. They're all looking for work and just kind of continuing along the pace of what they did. Just it completely ineffective, unable to stop anything. I like the idea of that being the security detail when it actually gets revealed at the end.
Oh, what are you guys doing here? Oh, you say you're supposed to be here? Okay, step right through. Go on, just do what you need to do. We'll watch you. If you need help breaking anything, just give us a call down here.
Just give us a call, yeah. The other one I liked was watching the Bengals is like watching the Harlem Globetrotters and Washington Generals on the same team.
It's hard not to feel that when this offense is so good. And they're just putting out highlights every week. And then I have to watch Geno Stone miss like 5 tackles on the same play as somebody just walks into the end zone. It can be tough. That
you've been really hard on Geno Stone, and
that's
you're
true.
leaving Jermaine Pratt out. Okay?
Yeah,
and I think that should hurt his feelings, because he's really working hard to also miss a lot of tackles.
And like the precedent that's been set, like Geno's got the bar so high that Jermaine Pratt is pulling out every trick in the book that he can just to be mentioned in the same space, and it's still not enough, but he's getting there. He is definitely getting there.
Oh yeah, he's getting there. I'm
shortage.
Sure he'll pile on a few more in Tennessee this weekend. All right. Before we move on and get into some of your questions, of which there are many, we have to remind you about our guy Eric Stanyo and his Clan Yo, #1 real estate YouTube channel in Cincinnati. He's with Keller Williams Realtors. You look, know him. He's our guy. He's a growl pal, and if you are looking to buy or sell, or you just want information about all the neighborhoods in Cincinnati, or about the school districts, or about trends, or about anything, make sure you go over to his YouTube channel at Team Stanyo, and you can get all of that information. He does a great job over there of keeping up with everything, keeping fresh content about what's going on right now. And then if you know anybody, of course, that is buying or selling, or just want to answer your real estate questions, he's your guy. info@teamstanyo.com, or you can just go to his website, www.teamstanyo.com. Again, SZTANYO. Go connect there. Our guy, make sure you holler at him if you have any issues or concerns or questions in the real estate world.
Those hats make great Christmas gifts too, so I'm sure that
they do.
You can go buy a Stanyo hat.
Love the bridge hat. The bridge hat.
It was always a popular gift at the live shows. People loved getting those. So
yeah. It's unique.
Another good reason. Maybe he'll drop some more off for our next show.
Ooh, there you go. I like that idea. All right. Do you have any questions for me?
I do. And we keep sending those to the growlerpodcast@gmail.com. We got a lot of good ones. We're going to start with Bill. Bill says, am I crazy for thinking there's still a logical path to the playoffs?
Oh, Bill.
Playoff talk is back.
Bill, bring him back. I have loved this actually this week. This has been great. So I saw this. I think Caleb over at Channel 9 had his video, got a bunch of run. Kudos to him. Did a great job of kind of laying it out. But this reminds me of the dude who's doing the parlay, and he ends up at like 12 legs, and he's like, I don't see how I lose. This is a winner. Like, look, I ended up, I'm gonna win. Says I'm gonna win 45 grand on a $5 bet.
Where am I
don't
wrong?
see how I lose. This is the greatest thing ever. Like, when you just say it like that, when it's like, look, you just need the Broncos just got to lose 3 of their last 4. The Colts got to lose 2 of their last 4. The Dolphins got to lose 2 of their last 4. The Bengals have to win all of them. That's it. And you're in. Okay? Print the shirts. Wild card. Hang the banner. It's hysterical. And then you'll go through this weekend and like one thing happens. You're like, damn. There goes that.
The other thing I love about this, though, are the people that are like, hey, if they do get in, nobody wants to play Joe Burrow in the playoffs. Nobody wants any part of that. I think they might want a part of that defense. I mean, Pittsburgh scored 50 points on them.
They might want a part of it. Yeah, they might want a part of a team that finds a way to blow every game at the end. Also. Yeah.
I mean, your defense.
We're still talking about that, by the way. If not for Dallas just touching the punt inexplicably, we're talking about the same exact game they've played all year long, failed to come through in the big spots. Something stupid and irrational happens, like Nick Vigil blocking a punt, and then they give up the game-winning field goal at the end for yet another walk-off loss, another one-score loss. They did all the things. Just Dallas is like, we'd rather be a little worse. Yeah. And they saved them from that. Every team wants to play a team with a bad defense that can't finish, Burrow or no Burrow. So unless that changes, and maybe that's what changes if they obviously rip off 5 in a row to end the season. But yeah, no, I don't. I do enjoy the path though. Look, I don't see it. I don't see how it doesn't happen. You gotta think it's gonna happen.
I mean, yeah, if you can't correctly predict a coin flip 12 times in a row, I mean, there's a chance. There's a chance it could all come together. This next question is from Paul C. He says he knows he's supposed to want the Bengals to lose now for a better draft pick. Don't know if I agree with that. But he said he's forgotten how good it feels to pull off a win. Even though the team's riddled with problems, it's so much fun to watch Burrow and Chase and have that payoff at the end. Now, back to cynicism. After watching that game and seeing Joe under constant pressure and getting pounded every game with the interior of the line collapsing like a poorly constructed gingerbread house, there's major work to do to keep Joe safe. Can you imagine the numbers he and Chase would put out with 2 to 3 more seconds of a clean pocket? But he also watched the game and was so puzzled that you didn't notice Jenkins or Murphy at all through the whole game. Not one play from either. These are first and second round picks, and they're contributing nothing. The dreadful secondary gets no help from a pass rush, and at least Turner and Dax will hopefully help with the secondary. But the line, there's nothing beyond Trey, nothing. So what are you prioritizing this offseason when they're both major problems, the interior of the offensive line and mostly the entire defensive line?
Yeah. So, well, I think the defensive line is the problem of the team. I mean, I think, which is funny because they've invested more there than any other position. They've paid more money than anybody. They've invested all these draft picks, and it's not happening now. Would change in scheme or voice or whatever, maybe get more out of some of those guys. I don't know, but when you're looking at what they have to do there, I mean, you need 3 to 4 new rotation players, and that includes starters, like in terms of both your defensive tackles, because I mean, Sheldon Rankins isn't going to be back. I don't see a world where that they go back down that road again. BJ Hill maybe, but again, he's a older guy who's played well. But what is that gonna look like? You bring him back, but I don't know that the deal that he wants here is going to be happening. Sam Hubbard, I don't know what happens there. Like, that's a really tough conversation in terms of what they do there. But they had him down to 20 some snaps the other day. I mean, we see kind of what's going on with that. So you need and none of your young guys are ready to take it over. You can't give it to Miles Murphy at this point. I mean, he's done nothing with the opportunity he's been given, really. So if you look at ranked out of the top 200 in terms of usage from all defensive linemen this year, here's their pass rush rankings amongst your group. Hendrickson's third. I'm going true pass set win rate. Very much like filtering down to the specific where there's no variables. You're just getting after the quarterback. Hendrickson's third. Osai is 115. Rankins 132. Hill 134. Miles Murphy 151. Sam Hubbard 159. And Chris Jenkins 187. I mean, you have one dude in the top half of the league, even in that. Bengals fans know that. They're like, yeah, welcome to our nightmare. We've been in this all year. Even in run defense, you are a little better. You've had some, Hubbard is 42nd. BJ Hill's 56th. Hendricks is 63rd. That's in just run defense grade on PFF. The rest are all down in that bottom half, though, as well. That's where that's where your heavy reinvestment is all focused. Like that's a primary focus. The corners, that having to cover that long is part of what is exposing these corners. And I think they need a number 1 corner. Like you feel so good about, well, I don't know about so good. That's too strong. You feel pretty good about the construction of your corners if you add a dude, whether that's a top 10, whether that's your first round draft pick like the Eagles did with Quenya Mitchell, or that's a premium free agent, a number one corner in free agency, which those are hard to find, but you can find them or trade or whatever. If you have that, somebody who you feel like could be that, suddenly you've got a battle between DJ Turner and Cam Taylor-Britt and maybe Josh Newton for number 2. Dax is your slot guy, which I think you really like that. And then those other guys are your depth pieces, and maybe there's a low range free agent in your depth as well. That feels like a well-constructed group. That feels like something that you could do. And with a good pass rush, it could be effective very quickly. To me, though, I think the defensive line is clearly the number one thing on this team that they've got to get better.
And that's hard to solve. That's a hard position
very hard to
get
solve.
In free agency.
Very hard to solve. And the draft. Yeah, very hard.
It can take those guys a year or two to develop anyway. So maybe there's more hope for Jenkins and Jackson next year to be somewhat of good contributors, role players. But yeah, you need difference makers, and Sheldon Rankins is not that.
Yeah,
DJ Hill.
And you get in a free agency, and then because it's so hard to find those guys, they end up getting overpaid by a lot. Christian Wilkins is a perfect example last year with the Raiders. I mean, he was the number one free agent, but it's so hard to find those premium defensive tackles because they all get extended or they get picked in the top 10. You see him make $30 million in this, and it becomes an overpay for that for an otherwise really good player. So what happens? Who are those guys this year? I mean, I think Milton Williams from Philadelphia is a name that pops certainly amongst free agents. But again, you don't know. Are guys going to get extended? Are they going to get re-signed? What's going to happen? There's a bunch. There's the Dane Brugler's mock draft is out. I know my mock drafters. They're like, yeah, been slurping that up. Love it. Mock draft season's been very much upon us. Top 100s are all happening. And there's a lot of defensive tackles in that range that the Bengals are going to be picking. He had 4 going between 8 and 18, which kind of reminds me last year where the first trend we saw was all those offensive tackles that were there in the top of the draft. And you're like, oh, one of those probably would be able to slide to them and give them good value. Well, that feels like that could be the thing you get this year. But again, it ends up being another rookie and all these other questions. That's a long way of saying that they need a lot of fixes there and needs to kind of come from everywhere.
Yeah, at least the offensive line, like you can see the path to that. It doesn't take much to upgrade those interior positions from being the absolute worst to being something that's just passable. Like that's not an expensive fix, especially when you've got 2 good tackles on the outside, a solid center. Your line is not going to be as hard to fix on the offensive side.
No, I think you can replicate what you did with Cap and Karras. I mean, you need to be aggressive early in free agency, but target those middle average solid guys that are better pass protectors and find them, target them, go in on them in free agency and make sure you knock it out. And then you feel really good. I mean, if you add a couple of guards that are even just mid-level or whatever, or put the other ones in a competition, or I don't know. I mean, you add a couple of pieces there through any different number of different ways. Then I feel like you can turn it when you have the outside tackles solid. That it does change the dynamics of how hard that actually is. It's a little easier to work inside. Not as easy as it used to be back in the day, but it is a little easier.
Next question is from Steve. He says he loves the podcast, gets him through his brutal winter runs. You know what normal humans don't do? Wake up at 4 to run in the winter. Yeah, that sounds miserable. Sorry, Steve. I'm out on this. Good luck with those runs. But he said Alex Kappa's on his mind. It's not because he just boycotts and protests blocking people. It's because how disinterested he looks. Part of me wonders if he's got one of those Hubbard injuries nobody knows about, and that's why he leads the league in looking pitiful. However, watching him closer the last few weeks, it's obvious we have a vibes issue. It's always back to the vibes.
Back to it.
Every time Burrow gets cleaned up and hit, he doesn't care if it's a late hit or close enough where a normal veteran O-line would kind of have pride take over. He just looks on. It's one thing to just be injured and old like Hubbard, but to not have your quarterbacks back is wild. Help me understand that. Also, is Joe advocating for T publicly all of a sudden because he's seen enough all year to know that the Burton and Yoshi experience isn't going to provide him a solid next receiver, let alone that number 2 that he desperately needs? He says he feels like Chase Brown is wide receiver 3 now, and he does admit, Paul, that you were right. He was on the Mixon bandwagon all year, that was the right move, but he's now finally conceded that moving on to Chase Brown was the right play.
Yeah.
So
Once they played Chase Brown all the time, amazing that the offense kind of took off and is more explosive.
a lot to unpack with this one, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say Steve's got thoughts, and I appreciate that. Yeah, we kind of touched on the offensive line stuff. I mean, Kappa, he has not been. He clearly has hit a cliff, and they have easy outs in his contract. I think you could, if you looked at him and you said, okay, let's take that money that you spend on Alex Kappa or that you save by getting rid of him and dedicate that to whatever the free agent equivalent is now, that's certainly a move that you would make and get younger there and refresh the same way you did the next Alex Kappa, which I mentioned earlier. Yeah, I don't. The standing up for Burrow thing has been one of the weirdest storylines to follow this year, where you're like, every single one of these gets some kind of an excuse as to why it hasn't happened, of like, oh, they don't see that, he didn't see that one, and yeah, that one time it's just because, oh, they don't want to get a penalty, and man, like, it happens a lot, and you guys are out of it. Like, you should at least just, how hard is it to just give a guy a shove with one arm while you help Burrow up? It happens every time. The lineman comes over, shoves the defensive lineman that was been talking trash out of the way, and helps the quarterback up in the same move. It actually should be taught. They should be practicing this. Can they practice this? Get out there, like, have a little, like, Joe Burrow dummy laying on the ground, right? And one of the defensive guys puts on one of the, like, pennies and the hat, the that you pull over down over top of your helmet that has the other team's colors, and they come up and they pretend talk trash and all of that stuff. And then you come up and you practice. You're okay. Extension, push, say an expletive at him, and pull Burrow up with the other hand. Let's try it again. Work it through again. Let's be tighter with it. Right? Can we practice
Fight Club. Let's go.
It's not fight. It's not fight. It's announced that I don't like that. I'm not cool with that, and I'm going to help my guy up. It shouldn't be that hard. That's what it is. It's just the basic stuff there. And it just feels like it does feel like that doesn't happen enough.
Do you feel like this would be a different story if Orlando Brown had been playing more? Because he's kind of that veteran presence there. I'm a little surprised that Ted Karras hasn't, because he actually spoke about it right in the locker room after the first time that he regretted not doing it. Then it proceeded to happen in each of the next 3 games. Again. Like, does he still regret it? How come he's not the one that's stepping up?
A little more fire out of the group. I think everybody would appreciate that.
And then,
did I touch on everything here? There was a lot.
Chase Brown as wide receiver 3. Like, do you think that the advocating for T is because he's lost faith in Burton and Yoshi, or do you feel like that's kind of unrelated?
I don't think they've lost faith in Yoshi. Yoshi has gotten his role back expanded again, and I think has been playing pretty well. I mean, he's starting to give him more in as a blocker out there, which is big for that wide receiver 3 role. 2 weeks in a row, he has been a big part of breaking Chase Brown for a long one, for the touchdown, the 19-yard reception down the sideline. He was a big part of that out in front. And then the Chase Brown run the previous week against the Steelers, that was a long one. That was the one that ended up right down at the goal line that they said he got in and they pulled him back. That one, he was a big part of sealing that one off. And they've kind of wanted to see more of that from him, to be the dirty work wide receiver 3. And then when you do that, guess what? Some catches have come his way, snaps have come his way, and he's been able to make plays. So I think they really like him in that role. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you can't view him as wide receiver 2 at this point, or a guy that has that ceiling. I think his ceiling and where he's starting to approach is that dirty work wide receiver 3 guy that a lot of teams that you need. But yeah, in this case, they're learning. I mean, Burton didn't become a guy. All these rolls of the dice they've taken, and they still don't have that. That's because it's hard to get that every time if you're not using a premium pick on wide receiver.
So we're going to stay in wide receiver land because we have a few T. Higgins questions. We'll kind of roll into one. Nick says he loves the idea of bringing T back, but he thinks that it might be better to use that money on the interior O-line and a bigger running back to complement Chase Brown. And then also bringing Mike Gesicki back to try and help fill that void of losing T. Higgins. He also says, I might be crazy, but Tanner Hudson is a weapon in the middle of the field. I don't know if Tanner Hudson's going to be the solution to replacing T. Higgins. I think that might be a little bit of a leap for me. But again, he thinks that that money is better spent elsewhere. But then we also have another question here. Is it possible we just tag T again and then trade him straight to Tennessee for Jeffrey Simmons to immediately fix the interior of the defensive line? or do you think it'll just be the same old Bengals? So here's the run passer boot that we're combining these with. What do you see as the result here of the T. Higgins saga? Do you see him getting that run passer boot, the long-term deal, the tag and trade, or just walking in free agency?
I mean, this run passer boot has been like the 3-card Monty game here all week. I mean, it feels like it's changing every day, and what it was certainly on Monday morning is not what the answer to this, I think, is today, because Burrow has pushed one card much further out in front than you anticipated, and that's the long-term deal. I think right now, today, I mean, this becomes pure guesswork because it is apparent there are a lot of steps that need to be taken in order to get to what this end result is. But it's also clear where people are standing, and there people have drawn lines now, or at least Burrow has drawn one, and we don't know what side ownership's on yet until we hear from them about it. But I've had the sense that bringing T back has not been their plan, and I don't think it takes a lot to see that over time, but things have changed. So how much has change affected the previous stance? I don't know. I'll say, if I'm going with it right now, I'm going to say long-term deal is my run. I'm going to say that's the best chance of that happens. I think things have changed. I think Burrow's not making this up. I think T dropping his agent signals something here. And I think it's possible. I think that it's possible that they play chess, as Jamar Chase said. So I'll run with that. I will pass on tag and trade because it just makes too much sense. I don't see anybody that they would be using the tag on. So if they wanted to get some value back for T earlier, because if you let him go in free agency, you're getting a comp pick, which would probably be a 3rd-round comp pick, but it wouldn't come to you until 2026. Well, if you can tag and trade him to somebody and get even if you get the equivalent of a 3rd-round pick, but you get it a year earlier, that's still a worthwhile endeavor, and send T to a place that maybe he's more comfortable with. But of course, then he doesn't get to hit the open market. There's a lot of things there. I think that makes more sense. And so I guess I boot free agency, even though on Monday morning I would have run with free agency.
I'm just excited for the possibility of part 5, 6, and 7 and 8 of the T. Higgins story.
It never stops. It's never ending. It keeps changing. It's
Star
forever.
Wars.
Well, I mean, it's become, it does feel like, we met references at the top with the Carson Palmer conversation, but it does feel like it's kind of starting to become the issue that we will look back on as a defining one with Burrow. We just never, when you come out and you're this vocal about something like this, and you're being this confident and putting yourself out there and saying everything that he's saying, he's sending that message. And if they don't do it, think about the questions on the other side of that.
Yeah.
If they said that we couldn't do a deal, T goes to free agency, he signs with, I don't know, Arizona or New England or whatever. And you're like, okay, he's gone now. Next time we talk to Burrow, what'd you think about that? You said that you'd be disappointed. You said that it was a need.
Yeah.
What are those questions like? What are those answers like? What's his thought process like at that point? Even if he I believed in this plan that they sold me otherwise, even though I didn't think it was the right way to go before. That's not a conversation I hear happening. So I just think that you end up in a really, really interesting place with this whole thing. And that's why we keep talking about it.
How much do you like this, though, coming from the sports writer perspective of like you were mentioning, if Dallas doesn't fumble that ball, it's the same story that we've been telling about this team every single week. Whereas now Joe has kind of flipped the whole T. Higgins thing on its head, gives us something new, a new angle, gets fans thinking about the future and hope that maybe this trio sticks together. Do you like that from the sports writer perspective, that there's something fresh to take on?
Yeah, I love off-season topics. Like I do. I prefer to talk about games in season, but this is where we're at. At least it makes it interesting. Here's the thing. The NFL never stops providing storylines, ever. This team, no matter, last year, this time, you're like, what are they going to talk about? Burrow's hurt. And next thing you know, like Jake Browning becomes this really interesting story, and all the stuff that happens at the end of the season. the NFL keeps going. It keeps just dropping gold nuggets on your lap. Like there's always something to look at. And this team I was on with Robert Mays this week on the Athletic Football Show, and we talked for a half hour. We could have talked for 3 hours, and it was almost all about the offseason in front of this team. And it might be the most fascinating offseason in the NFL for any team, is what the Bengals have in front of them, because of the way this season went, because of what's going to happen with Jamar's negotiation and the possible fireworks there, the T situation, fixing a defense, free agency, a premium pick, all of these things. And then Burrow hanging there in the balance of, you can't let another season go to waste like this. Like and all the hot seats that are involved with that. And are they going to be looking for new coaches? Like all of these things. It makes them as fascinating as any team in football, because of how quickly they can flip a switch in one good offseason and be in the Super Bowl next year. Like it's not that hard to see if they ace this offseason, or even if they get a B minus.
Yeah, right.
For my bad students out there. Like, look, if I can get a B, man, wow. Then they should be in the Super Bowl, or be right there amongst those teams on the short list if you get it right, because
just a little bit of
the hard stuff. You already have the hard stuff.
That offense, it's pretty easy to see how you can reconstruct that, and then especially once you get those deals done. Defense, you don't have to fill every hole. I know there's a lot of them, but you just have to fill a couple of them well, and then this is a much different team, much different conversation.
No doubt.
Our next question here is from Dan. He said the podcast has been one of the few bright spots of the year for him. This next part is wild to me. He says, I am part of a kickers only fantasy football league, which is exactly what it sounds like. And he says, because of this, he is well aware of the league-wide kicker struggles, which, of course, we're familiar with here. But not only have they struggled, there's a surprising number of kickers on IR. Has there ever been a year with so many injuries to kickers? Between the misses, and the injuries, is this the worst year to ever be a kicker in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, it has been an awful year for kickers, and particularly for traditionally good kickers. I mean, this has been happening across the league. Guys that have been amongst the most reliable now can't make anything. And Evan and Justin Tucker have sort of been amongst the faces of that. But yeah, and I don't know. I could discuss that. I don't want to. You know why? Can we talk about the idea of forming a kickers only fantasy football league?
Yes, that's crazy.
What are we doing? Is this are these a bunch of people that kicked in high school and have this like unrequited need to continue to center their existence around that experience? Are they, I don't know, are they just masochists? Do they hate fun? Like what is the joy in only following kickers? I mean, it's as random as it gets.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of weird things with fantasy football. This just sounds like a nightmare. Who wants to just put all their time and effort into doing the kickers only league? I mean, I'm assuming he's probably in like 3 or 4 other normal leagues, and maybe this is just one more avenue to just stay after it. And but yeah, former high school kickers, that's the only thing that I can think. Who else would actually care that much about the position to follow that and just that every single week?
I mean, it must be really intense. I mean, you get these kicks at the end of these games, and these guys are just grinding over it every week. It's like, 12-11 again.
Yeah, how big is the roster in the
well, and they must go really into detail on the kicks, like the length. I'm going to guess there's a point system for the yardage. So like, 0.1 for every yard in the length of the made kick. So a 58-yard kick would get you 5.8 plus like a make. I mean, there's minuses for me. I got to feel like it's the most intricate kicking scoring system ever. Send us more. Who sent us this? Dan?
Yes. We need to know more about this.
I need to know the scoring system and the rule book and how this works. I'm invested. I
want to know.
Hooked me in.
A lot of fantasy leagues have punishments for the last place guy. There's got to be some sort of kicker related punishment where he's got to pull off a kick or do some sort of one of those big halftime kicks or something. I want to know what they do to the last place guy in that league. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it would be he has to go out there and like try to kick 40-yarders until he makes one, like literally just all day, all night, over and over again. Just him and the little thing that holds it up. right? So it's just
Yeah.
him in the darkness by himself on a field trying to make a long kick for days on end.
With just one ball. So every time he kicks it, he has to go
Got to go
sprint
run
down,
after it. No
collect it.
question.
Yep.
Definitely only one ball. Yeah, no help. People just sitting in the stands, pointing, laughing, taking video, posting it on the internet. This is good.
Our ambush question this week. This is somebody has an issue with something you mentioned on last week's Dey Light. He said that Paul wants to retire the sell the team talk, and this guy agrees. But he also he said that you mentioned that if the team was sold, that they would move. He does not agree with that. He said there's been no official reporting that he can find indicating that claim, and there have been a lot of teams that have changed ownership groups that didn't move. Why does Paul feel like the team would move if it's sold? Is he privy to information fans don't know about, or is that just an assumption?
I love this. Is like first of all, I know you never wanted to talk about this again.
Yeah, right.
Here's
you wanted to
question.
retire it next week. Here we go.
Next week, we're already back in. That to me, it's not that there hasn't been other times where teams buy it and don't sell it. This just is a unique market and situation. It's a small market. It is one where if you are selling the team, if you're the Bengals, and again, we're going down this fictional world again, which is why I hate this topic, but you're doing it because you couldn't get a stadium built or you're not happy with whatever you're asking for. So you don't think a new owner coming in here is doing it with the idea of getting a new stadium? They buy these teams with the idea that there's a new stadium attached to it there, and if it's not, it's somewhere else. See Vegas, not new ownership, but like their moves are made around new stadiums. St. Louis is really the comp here, right? Like that is, you're talking a small market, a place that wouldn't build a stadium for them. You get Stan Kroenke comes in, he buys the team. They fight with the city a little bit more. Still not going to build you a stadium. He moves them to LA. That's the market size. That's the situation. That is the most similar to what you have here in Cincinnati. And so if you're going to think that someone's going to come in and be like, oh, it's cool, buy the team, and we'll just deal with some kind of like, you guys could give us like a cheap renovation, or we'll just keep playing in this place. It's going to be based around that. And so the only way that they're going to sell the team is if you're not going to give them what they want on the stadium, or at least partially, then a new owner is not going to probably come in and all of a sudden be able to get that done unless they're willing to go build their own thing somewhere else. And maybe that's what it is. But I don't see somebody coming in here and wanting to stay in this market. Why? I don't see someone spending that kind of money to stay in this market. But again, that's why I hate this topic. It's fictional talk for the most part.
It's just not going to happen. Big road trip this weekend. What do fans going down to Nashville need to know about the city?
I mean, I'm going to guess most people have probably been to Nashville once or twice, because if I don't know, if you've ever known anybody who's had a bachelor or bachelorette party, you've probably been to Nashville. So it's not
for better
hard.
or worse.
Yeah, I like. I'm not a Broadway guy.
Okay.
I know a lot of people go down there and mix it up, and that's fun. I like the Gulch, which is kind of I don't know if it's like new, young, hip, trendy, OTR-y type place in Nashville, but there's a lot of really good food down there. It's a little quieter, and you can still hang out and whatever. But that's kind of what. And there's a good Marriott down there that I usually can find at a decent rate when all the other hotels are super expensive down closer into Broadway. So that's me personally. I like it down that way. I've stayed out at 5 Points area before, which is kind of a weird, goofy place that has a lot of stuff that if you're into odd or musical Nashville, or really good food out that way specifically, that's a good spot to go to too.
Zanies is the comedy club down there, one of the best in the country. So I recommend that if you're going down for the full weekend, go catch a show at Zanies. Good times out there. Growler bet this week was what?
Let's see. It was T. Higgins receiving yards. So we really we're trying to give these away. We're trying to give away winners here. And I still can't believe nobody got 20 as the number of combined receptions for CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase. Like, it's not so scared of the round numbers, but
they are all season.
Either way, T. Higgins receiving yards, where we're adding a range to this to try to get a winner. So You get 1 yard in either direction. So if you say 70, you would be a winner with 69, 70, or 71. So that is the Growler bet this week. growlerpodcast@gmail.com. Send in your submissions there. We want to give away a winner. We want winners.
Yeah, we need winners. We need to stack some dubs here at the end of the season and get some prizes out to people.
It's not happening right now. I'm disappointed. Let's see. What do you got? What's going on for comedy? How was the Go Bananas sets?
Oh, Go Bananas was great. Thanks to all the Growl pals that came out. We had a handful of them at different shows. There was, I think Thursday might have been the heaviest Growl pal night, at least percentage wise. But they were great shows. I'll be back in the Cincinnati area February 15th. That's the next one. So put that on your calendars. And then coming up, I'm in Lexington December 19th through 21st at Comedy Off Broadway, another great club. And then headlining the Toledo Funny Bone on New Year's Eve. So those are the big ones coming down the pipeline.
Do you like New Year's shows?
I don't, but it is a big thing in the comedy world.
It's a big comedy night, I know,
yeah.
But I always feel like, man, you're just asking to walk into the drunk room, right?
Yeah, it can be a little bit rowdy and wild, but it is, it's long been a comedy tradition. So I've worked more New Year's Eves than I would care to probably, but we're gonna have fun. Toledo's a fun club, fun little city there. Parts of it. The part where the club is fun. So if you live in that area, come out to that show. We'll have a good time on New Year's Eve. And I think the show's early enough that like you can still go do something else for the ball drop if that's your thing. I don't know that I would actually stay up to midnight anymore. That's not something that like are you a New Year's Eve guy? Do you stay up?
I usually fall asleep at some point, and then I usually get woken up when it's midnight to be like, "Hey, it's midnight." That's been
like,
cool. But a lot of, same way with you. Like I've had to work a lot of New Year's Eves in recent years, and I've been out of town for a couple of them. Last year, I spent it in a Marriott eating some sort of Chinese takeout. It was kind of sad, really. So we were in Kansas City. But yeah, so it feels like that happens a lot, but I do like it. I like to, we have a dumb tradition where we like to grill out on New Year's Eve, no matter what the weather.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Like get steaks and scallops and like do like a real good as a way to like fire the grill up in the winter and go out there in our like hats and jackets and kind of turn it into a stupid tradition. So we've done that. We've done that quite a bit whenever I've actually been home for it. So I'm sure we'll probably try to do that again this year.
It's also nice when your kids are young because you can trick them into thinking it's midnight, watch a different year ball drop or something that's pre-recorded. And
there's pre-recorded countdowns and ball
yes.
drops. Absolutely. That's what we do. We usually do a countdown to 8:00.
Yeah. You get the drama.
Go to bed.
They do the noisemakers and they're not staying up to midnight as a 5-year-old. That's important.
Yeah, exactly.
It is that holiday season. So for, we obviously full holiday mode over at our household, clearly given the holiday cold that has infected us all. But the one thing I've really kind of noticed more this year than any other year is like, as you get ready for the holidays too, this becomes more prevalent, but I feel like there's two people in every relationship, two types of people, right? The one that is keeping the eye on the finances and keeping their tabs on that. And then the other person who's just having a great time. That's all it is. They're just loving life. They are the grand marshal of a parade of Uber Eats and Amazon boxes. And it's just nonstop. Hey, let's go do Winterfest. Let's go to the zoo for their holiday thing and this and that. And it's just nonstop good times. And I wish I was that person. It is so fun to be that person.
I'm that person. I'm more.
It's
I'm
good,
more
isn't
good
it?
times. I'm more good times, Charlie. Like, let's go. I'm here for it. Like, we're gonna do all the stuff. How's it go? I don't know. We're all.
Who
right.
needs a Christmas budget? Let's just open it up, throw that credit card down, get every toy at Macy's.
Yeah, it's okay. That's right. I think you just got to just not, I don't need to look at those. I don't need to look at those numbers. Let's just have some fun, right? Let's live our lives.
Yeah, let that credit card bill just shock you in January. Let that be 2025's problem.
2025 guy is going to be great at handling issues. I can tell you. It's going to be a resolution. It's going to be part of the whole new year guy. So we'll worry about that. We'll take advantage of this part right now. I like that.
What's going on in your world?
We've got, Christmas gift requests. So always like, okay, what's your list? What are you going to ask for? What are you asking Santa for? What else do you want? Well, one interesting request has popped up from my 5-year-old this year, and she has asked for a book of spells and a wand.
What?
Yeah. And so I'm sort of like, well, what do you mean a book of spells? Like real spells? And where did this come from? It's not like there's a lot of witchcraft movies that we've been watching. You know, we have done some of the like Rise of Red, The Descendants, right? They've kind of done some of that. So you got the Book of Spells there that's planting a little bit of that seed.
So
But
it's not
it's still a very, it's not like we're living in that
Yeah.
world of witchcraft or doing a lot of witch stuff. Now all of a sudden it's like I want a Book of Spells and I want the wand. And we're like a real spells? And she's like, yeah, if I could get real spells. Where do you find the real spells book? First of all, I don't know about that. Second of all, what if they work? And so then you have to have a conversation. But look, honey, I think what you need to do is if you get the Book of Spells, you can't use it on your family first. You got to test it on something else. Just she's become obsessed with, I'm going to test it on the front yard and try to turn the whole front yard into pretty flowers. And I was like, there you go. That's a great, if it works, then everybody's happy, right? That works out well. But you can't put real spells on us. So we don't want that. So it takes you to these dark conversations about spells, how they work, what happens when you turn someone into a toad and you don't know the spell to make that stop. Like, and now we've got to find, do we go get a book of spells that has actual ones in it, like, so to speak, actual ones? Is it one where you make up your own and write them on the like parchment with like one of those feather pens? I don't know exactly where this ends. Other than it's been one of the more challenging requests that we have to fill.
That's some dangerous arts and crafts there if you start letting her cook up her own spells. And so this isn't like a Harry Potter thing or anything. This is
it's not Harry Potter. I
discovered it on her own, like a Wiccan thing. Okay, Descendants.
Yeah, I think it's Descendants based is where this starts. But I'm not really sure where she's going to take it. I'm kind of hoping that's one of those that if it happens, she ends up just kind of setting it down and not quite playing with it, rather than becoming a witch person.
Yeah, she's in some sort of Wiccan
cult. If that's
cult.
who she wants to be, then I will embrace it.
You're going to be doing daddy-daughter spells on people and just really messing up that neighborhood.
Just walking around Oakley Square, putting random spells on people will be like those people that are out in front of all the ball games and stuff, right?
Yeah, if you ever see Paul flying a magic wand flag, that's when you steer clear of his house because you know the spells are getting cooked up.
The spells are being cooked up.
You don't want to be on the wrong end of a spell.
No, absolutely not. All right, so that wraps us up. Next week, we'll be back and we'll see more information on potential OU watch party, but we can guarantee you that we will be doing the live show before the Browns game at 10 o'clock. Again, Christmas show. We're going to be giving away tons of good stuff. Jerseys, helmets, signed stuff, you name it. We're going to have tons of great merchandise down there to give away. More than just our Growl Pal shirts, but we'll have that stuff too.
Yep.
All the good stuff.
Excellent Christmas gifts.
Yeah, look forward to that. Hopefully we'll see you down there at BetM Gym, Nation Kitchen and Bar, down at the Banks. Until then, we will talk to you next time on the walkout after Bengals Titans from Nashville. So have a good one, everybody.